In the fall of 1841, J. Bartlett Rooney of Maryland arrived in recently established Dane County and established a homestead. One apocryphal story relates that when asked where he lived, Rooney replied, "Halfway to Oregon," referring to the newly established Oregon Trail. The name stuck, and within 2 years, Rooney expanded his cabin and called it the Pioneer Hotel. Over the next 3 years, Oregon boomed, with a whopping 14 families moving into the newly founded village. A tavern, a feed store, and the first school were launched by C.P. Mosley. A disgruntled and irritable Lutheran, Mosley opened his tavern to religious meetings closed to Catholics and Lutherans. The First Congregational Church, later the First Presbyterian Church, and People's Methodist Church were organized at Mosley's Tavern. In 1844, Methodist circuit rider Chester James arrived in the area and declared, "Without God, you are all doomed." A new arrival, Ira Hayes, invited James to his home, and the next day hosted the first class meeting in the area. 1 year later, on June 6, 1845, the People's Methodist Episcopal Church was chartered, hosting meetings and services in barns, homes, the Mosley School, the Mosley Tavern, and on the lawn of the Pioneer Hotel. In 1848, a dispute arose between the Mosley family and People's first pastor, William Main Fox. Fox demanded that Oregon Methodists sign a temperance pledge, promising to abstain from drinking any beer, ale, wine, or spirituous liquor. Understandably, the local tavern keeper was not in support, and the Methodists were asked to leave. Stoddard Johnson donated land on what is now Main Street in 1849, but construction was delayed until 1860 when Ira Hayes' brother, Enos, oversaw the building of the first church. All construction materials were donated by Nathaniel Ames. Methodist services were held in the Oregon Grain Storage Barn until 1855, where the Presbyterians graciously allowed Peoples to share their church. The Reverend W. H. Kellogg, pastor of Peoples in 1861 through 1863, was a prominent voice in the abolitionist movement, encouraging young men to enlist in the Union Army to free the slaves and restore the dignity of the country in the eyes of God. In 1895, People's ME Church was growing so fast that it was essentially rebuilt, adding social rooms, kitchen, and belfry, and installing hardwood floors, new pews, and a new pulpit in the auditorium. Peter Taylor loaned the money for the project. In 1899, when the remaining debt had been reduced to a small sum, Taylor canceled the balance of the loan, and the next day he died. From its beginning, People's Methodist Episcopal Church embraced the 3 hallmarks of Methodism: relational evangelism, global missions, and social justice. Known for its staunch abolitionist support, People's ME Church was the first in Dane County to welcome a black man, a Native American family, and a Chinese family into its membership. The Reverend J.W. Barnett, pastor from 1903 through 1907, was an ardent proponent of child labor laws, drafting some of the earliest legislation in the state of Wisconsin. Pastor Frank Wagg lasted only 1 year at Peoples. While his personal commitment to equal rights for women and the suffragette movement were well accepted at Peoples, he was asked to leave soon after he allowed his wife to deliver a sermon in 1918. Progressive? Yes, but within limits. Against all advice from church leaders and the Western Wisconsin Methodist Episcopal Conference, Reverend Leland Cooper announced that God told him it was time to modernize and expand People's Church in the deepest depths of the Great Depression. Working tirelessly, Cooper canvassed miles and miles of Dane County collecting funds for the project. Lay leaders convinced the bishop at the time to reappoint Cooper before he bankrupted the whole church. But to everyone's surprise, Reverend Cooper produced over $8,000 in donations. The decision to reappoint Cooper had already been made, so he moved on just months after the renovation was completed, costing the church $7,944. The church gave Cooper $50 as a thank you and an apology. A second pastor was once asked to leave People's Methodist Episcopal Church due to his commitment to justice and human rights. Reverend Elmer E. Duden was a beloved and greatly admired pastor from 1940 through 1942. But when Japanese citizens were rounded up and placed in internment camps, Duden went on a crusade. Attempting to unify the congregation and storm the Capitol, Duden was labeled un-American, and he was shunned by all but a few of the church members. There was concern that the church would close, so Duden was moved in 1943. During the years of World War II, People's Methodist Episcopal Church made a commitment to support families with children where the men were off fighting. The Mothers Club was established to support the Sunday school and create fellowship and care for young families. It became a model for the Mother's Day Out program used across the country in many denominations in the 60s and 70s. Another minister of People's Methodist Episcopal Church, the Reverend Robert H. Thomas, rose to prominence during the early 1960s for his commitment and leadership in the civil rights movement. Reverend Thomas went on to specialize in mental health ministry to combat prejudice and bigotry. People's Methodist Episcopal Church formally changed its name to People's United Methodist Church in 1968 when the Evangelical United Brethren Church merged with the Methodist Episcopal Church. People's Church continued to grow throughout the 1970s and 1980s with the addition of the Education Building in 1971 and a complete renovation in 1984. In 1992, Howard Hintzman became pastor of People's United Methodist Church, rekindling a focus on children's ministry, adult education, and community welcome and engagement. One of the significant new ministries at the close of the 20th century was the launch of the Wednesday night supper, still thriving and serving to this day. In 2005, People's United Methodist Church relocated to its current location, way out here on Alpine Parkway. We proudly share our property with the Oregon Area Food Bank. One of our most exciting and successful ministries is the Little Angels Early Learning Center. Recently, the Oregon Community Center has decided to join us, locating the new library, town hall, and post office right in our front yard. In the past few years, People's United Methodist Church has continued to serve the community and grow in mission and ministry. Honoring our past, we restored some of the stained glass from the old church, reminders of the long, meaningful, and important ministry of days gone by. Looking to the future, we installed solar panels on both church and parsonage, meriting a Dane County Climate Champions Award in 2023. Voting to become a reconciling congregation, focusing on ministries with other races, ethnicities, faith communities, the LGBTQIA+ persons, as well as those challenged by physical, cognitive, emotional, and developmental disabilities, and declaring itself a sanctuary church, People's continues to live out its commitment to social justice, global missions, and relational evangelism. Launching the Stevens Ministry, hosting line dancing and ball exercise, and Alcoholics Anonymous all continue our commitment to health and wellness. Our recent capital campaign will allow us to maintain and improve our facility with a new parking lot, the elimination of an outstanding debt, and new signage to welcome new people. From its inception to this day, the vision and commitment of our community of faith has been clear. We are a church for all God's people. And it may well be that our best days are yet to come. Thanks be to God.